Alright, so today I wanted to talk about not NFT games. No, here's the thing. NFT games, but not NFTs. Fuck, this is a bad intro. Not NFTs in general, because that wouldn't make a gaming channel. But anything in relation to NFT gaming, essentially. So, what I wanted to talk about today was a little article that I came across just a few days ago that gave a little bit of a, I guess you can say, some clarity or some understanding about how NFT games will be in the future in terms of like big publication and stuff like that. So I've actually never gone through it, but my hope for this article is that I can read this article and it would give me some measure of, I don't know, something to actually take out of that's actually going to be beneficial for the sake of NFT games. Because right now my status on NFT games are that they're just not, I understand what they are, but they're not doing a tried and true purpose, you know? Like, everyone's just making NFT games just to make NFT games because those tie to a lot of money at the end of the day. And that's the entire landscape of NFTs in general. If you go to an NFT marketplace, it kind of really feels that way. So, I'm hoping that this article can actually change my mind, because if not, I will continue to go on the same rant and tyrant saying that NFT games are good, but you know, they're just not where it's at right now. And granted, you could argue that they're the future of video games, but currently, I digress. Anyway, so we're gonna start just scrolling down. Sorry. This article is done by, I should give some... Okay, well look, this is an article by GamesBeat, and I'll put a link in the description below. The Dean Beat, sorry, GamesBeat. The Dean Beat, why NFT game startups will win big while big publishers wait for regulation. Okay, I had to read that slowly. Alright, just like the metaverse has captivated, actually you should F11 that so you don't see these thousands of tabs. Just like the metaverse has captivated the imagination of the gaming industry, so have non-fungible tokens, NFTs. But while the metaverse has been dismissed as a science fiction hype, NFTs have stirred even more haters like me. But after listening to a lot of talks about GamesBeat Summit next online event this week, I'm convinced that the startups are going to win the NFT gaming market as it moves towards mass adoption. I'll back up my argument, but first I have some explaining to do because some very big gaming companies are turning like battleships into the NFT market. If you look at Google Trends, you'll see that the NFTs started picking up in February and skyrocketed after related NFT sales like digital art and NBA Top Shot took off. Dapper Labs has now seen sales and resales of these NFTs top to 780 million in March. An NFT digital collage by the artist Beeple sold Christie's for 69.3 million. NFT sales hit. Yeah, see, when it comes to the sales of NFTs, I don't generally care about what the concept or what the price of an NFT actually is. Just because something costs something high doesn't mean necessarily that it should be valued as such. So it's a logical assumption that NFTs will sweep through gaming much like they have through art. NFTs use the transparent and secure digital ledger of blockchain to uniquely authenticate one-of-a-kind items. This establishes digital ownership for players in games like Sky Mavis, Axie Infinity, which has seen 2.4 billion in trading this year. This ownership model allows players to sell their level-up game characters for a profit, enabling a new business model for games dubbed Play to Earn, where players will finally earn their rewards. See, and I'm okay with that. Like, I understand that entire concept of it. The thing I'm not getting is, you can't expect me to buy something for 5,000 just for the sake that in the next 6 years, if your servers are still up, that I can sell it back for 10,000 or more. But NFT resales can be easily tracked and credited to either original creators or owners themselves. And so players or even the original creators can benefit from item resales. It's a part of a leisure economy that is lifting people out of poverty around the world. I would be careful with how you use that sentence, because even though NFTs and cryptocurrency I would be careful on using that sentence to make other people just run to the hills. Kind of like NFTs currently are like the new age gold rush. Everyone's going out to buy shovels. Everyone's going out to buy pickaxes and shovels, and they're buying up land. You know what I mean? Like, continuing on, it says, Amy Wu, a partner at Lightspeed Venture Partners and a crypto NFT game investor, said at our NFT event our NFT game space went from 0 to 100 in about 2 months. When Axie Infinity went from tens of thousands of dollars in revenue per month to 15 million per day, it has scaled up to 2 million daily active users and introduced a different crowd of players. Play to earn gaming. They're earning money much like the gold farmers did in other games, but on a scale that is unprecedented, she said. It's a pretty incredible space, he said, that shows the paradigm of Web3 and decentralization can do. Blockchain enthusiasts believe that Web3 or decentralization is the next wave in computing that will return in transactions to peer-to-peer level and get rid of all the big tech platforms and middlemen. The success of the game has caught the imagination of indie studios and game publishers. Now, see, they're going back and shuffling back and forth between what the potential value of an NFT can do versus the fluff of what an NFT actually is to make it actually valuable itself, though. Wu said, "We're seeing a huge influx in the capital into the intersection of blockchain and gaming, but publishers have moved from skepticism to action. Hundreds of companies are now trying to do blockchain gaming, and many of them are crypto native. Game companies run by cryptocurrency enthusiasts without much experience in making games," she said. Without much experience in making games. I don't want to buy a game if you suck at making games, dude. These companies have developer direct relationships with their communities on the web, including Discord or Twitter, without the middleman of the App Store's gaming native. Teams are also coming into the space, some via the big game publishers, Wu said. Those teams haven't quite grasped the Web3 and the community mindset as being critical to success. Players guilds like Yield Guild Games are fueling the growth of blockchain games. What matters about these games is that the community is driving the game. That is true. I'll give you that. It gave us a stone to use against the Goliaths, said Jeff Zerlin, who is a co-founder of Sky Mavis and the maker of Axie Infinity on a panel. When you're a startup, you're always trying to figure out what is your advantage, what is your secret sauce that you can use to create a niche for yourself in this market. For us, that was really this idea of community ownership, empowering gamers using this technology to create a huge dynamic between gamers and developers. Hundreds of guilds now exist in places like Philippines to support the games. The fact that people can create the value inside the game and then sell them to other people is creating the future of work where people are willing to do more things inside these games and virtual worlds, said Gabby Disney, CEO of Yield Guild Games on a panel. It's leading to all sorts of creativity in the economy from the players who are doing the actual work. People are, for example, becoming land brokers or doing esports streaming. I get, and it's like, here's the thing, yo. I get everything that they're saying, but how can I say this? I don't want, like, I'm not saying that people are older or anything. I don't want, like, older companies or just companies in general, like, I don't want people necessarily who are older to think that this is just some wild, wild west automatic, it can only be true money type of machine, you know? Like, to say, you know, people are, for example, becoming land brokers or doing esports streaming. That's like when Google wanted to make a gaming platform because they noticed that esports is getting real big, you know? And then now everyone wants to get into esports and wants to get into esports, but they probably don't really appreciate the actual gamers or the actual community of gamers themselves. And granted, some developers obviously will, and some developers obviously do, but the point I'm trying to say is I don't want my granddad trying to hype me up over NFT games and cryptocurrency and esports type shit, you know? Like, you're my granddad, dude. Like, this, I get that there's money involved, but like, you don't really know the entire history of, like, you know, at the fighting game community, stuff like that, you know? But I don't know, maybe I'm just ranting, being old myself. If you don't know what NFTs are, that is one of the obstacles to mainstream adoption of blockchain games. NFTs, cryptocurrency, and blockchain games have been tough to understand for developers, and consumers often have no clue how to use things like cryptocurrency wallets. About 97% of our audience believes that the public does not have a good understanding of blockchain. But startups like Forte are working on an infrastructure to make the technology more accessible, speed up transactions, and lower the cost. They and others are signing up for traditional game makers to onboard them to proper technology. This is why Forte raised $725 million today and why it also invested money into 10.5 million funding into Mark Long's Neon. We really want to explore all of the levers to pull in play-to-earning economy. Sorry I'm reading so bad, said John Linden, CEO of Mythical Games, on a panel. We'll be introducing a whole series of new games very soon from other studios and other great gaming companies on both PC, console, and mobile. We could say with nearly 100% certainty we will see at least one of the top 3 of 4 publishers in games to enter this space within the year. It's definitely happening, and I can agree with that. It is definitely happening. One of the big points of contention is that Bitcoin and Ethereum transactions use a lot of computing power because they are just based on proof of work system. Instead, more of these protocols and sidechains are built now on proof of stake systems that don't use a lot of computing power. Sidechains are offloading the transactions so that they can do more transactions per second, and again reducing the computing load from transactions on the blockchain, the fees, which represent the use of computer power, and dropping to nothing. Many of blockchain haters among gamers bring up this point about blockchain games causing climate change. I actually don't know if I agree with the whole climate change thing, because there's a lot of things that prove that we as humans do a lot more to climate change compared to blockchain and NFTs. But at the height of Bitcoin mining phase, that was a real concern, but mining has dropped off, and it's irrelevant to the subject of NFTs anyway. And when you think about it, an all digital cryptocurrency financial system is likely to be more climate friendly than all the physical banks in the world and other wasteful aspects of our financial system based on paper money. Yeah, pumping oil out of the ground and then transporting oil, and then, the things that you use to transport also make, pollution in the air anyway. So it's like, stuff like that. Others object to the market being filled with scams and money launderers, but compliance is the interest of startups, and they've always got the lawyers and the sophistication to understand that anti-money laundering laws and know your customer requirements. While big companies could point to all of these myths and perpetuate the resistance to blockchain games, they aren't doing that. Instead, the CEOs of big companies recognize the opportunity. Andrew Wilson, CEO of EA, told investors that NFTs are, oh god, I know that EA and Ubisoft are getting into NFTs. I'll talk about that in a minute. Told investors that NFTs are the future of gaming. Zynga's Frank Gibeau just hired a chief of blockchain game leader, Stuart Zelnick, Take-Two Interactive said he's a fan of NFTs. Take-Two Interactive is Rockstar Studios. Rockstar Studios is, I was about to say Left 4 Dead. Yeah, no, not Left 4 Dead. Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto. We all know that people love to collect things, he said. We know that people value rarity. What makes a collection valuable? An intersection of a perception of underlying value and quality and rarity. NFTs can offer that. They can offer a digital version of that. There's no question people value digital goods. It's digital, rare, and collectible. The big question. The big question is who will take NFTs to mass adoption, right? The upstarts are capitalizing on that trend, and they're hoping for mass adoption, and they all expect to reach mass adoption and disrupt gaming status quo. The big companies are paying attention mainly because their investors are asking them questions about NFTs. The CEOs of Zynga, Ubisoft, EA, Activision Blizzard, and Take-Two have all said that they are investigating NFT games. I know they are. I know for a fact they are. History favors the startups, particularly if you examine the explosion of free-to-play mobile games, which gave us the roadmap of predicting this new era at the outset. As the app stores were created on iPhone and Android, many hardcore gamers hated the new games. They condemned them for schemes such as pay-to-win loot boxes, addicted targeting, and scams. But over time, it turned out that designers could create fun games and win over a much larger audience for free-to-play titles. It turned out that you could design games that weren't scammy, that rewarded skill, that were fair for all, and let players express themselves through buying skins. And the game designers at many small companies who did this were richly rewarded, and they unlocked much larger audiences to the point where mobile games and more than half the industry free-to-play is about 78% of the market, while hardcore gamers number in the hundreds of millions, more than 2.9 billion in the world play games according to market research at Newzoo. But that's like recognizing that the free-to-play model is working, so you can charge something here and there every now and then in order to make a revenue. Fortnite is a great example of having a free-to-play model, but it has these occasional things that you pay for that makes up for the work that the developers do. 20 years ago, Microsoft was creating the original Xbox, and while some renegades wanted to move fast, others were trying to kill the project. This internal debate was deemed by insiders to be the strategy tax. It held the company back and slowed it down, and wound up entering the console market about 20 months after Sony launched the PS2. Sony won that generation. I will admit, I don't know, man. I don't know. Xbox has got some good some OG classic games. The same thing could happen here because the big companies are caught in some big dilemmas. Their legal teams are exploring the dangers of NFTs, and they have discovered plenty certain activities such as letting players earn rewards and then sell them could mean that NFT tokens could be classified as securities, which is true, and big companies would have to get a license to sell those securities. Valve decided to ban all NFT games out of its concern that they would be ruled to be illegal gambling, particularly in the state of Washington, which has strict gambling law. And yeah, and that's what I said, like, when it comes to like putting money in and expecting to get more money out, that's either doing lottery or that's gambling. Like, I don't know how else you could see it any other way. To close off the opportunity to all game design types just because one type might be classified as gambling is pretty short-sighted, says Chris Lovern, CEO of Space Pirate Games, whose title Age of Rust was banned on Steam. He saw hidden motives in Valve's move. I truly think that it has something to do with the competition with their Steam marketplace. Love more say. No, I don't think it's that. It's about insulating themselves with their walled garden approach with the Steam marketplace and controlling their APIs and how games work with centralized model for the games that they host. Wittek Radomski, Chief Technology Officer of Engine, said that, I actually invest in Engine, said on a panel that Valve's blanket ban was overly aggressive on a major game platform since developers have so many ways to build blockchain games. I don't think the world understands exactly what blockchain games are yet, Radomski said. It would have been a better move to investigate games that are more specific, like casino games or those that focus on the crypto aspect of it. Skill-based games, for instance, are not considered gambling in 41 states in the US. I don't know what he means by that. We've seen many games with modding platforms and open APIs that grow so much bigger. Radomski said, we think Valve should work with game developers to see what concerns are. We have seen the problem with mobile platforms as well as cryptocurrency, but I don't think that this is something that they can fight for very long. I'll agree with you on that last sentence. They can't fight it for long because a lot of people have no choice but to adapt to cryptocurrency and NFTs. Like, a lot of banks and big industries have no choice but to adapt. We ran some polls during our event and that were telling about 84% of our audience thought that Valve should allow NFT games. Another 60% of the audience said they were considering making blockchain games, and the audience predicted it would make 2 to 3 years for blockchain games to go mainstream. I'm not in that 84%, and you can probably tell why. Big game publishers don't want to tread into the space until they get clarity from securities. And yeah, that's the thing, dude. Like, they are waiting for the regulatory shoe to drop. This may be very prudent strategy, or it could be yet another example of strategy tax. About 71% of our audience thought regulators would crack down on blockchain gaming, and 62% believe that NFT game companies are overvalued. I know that big game companies are studying the space, but if they wait too long, free-to-play disruption will repeat with NFTs. The investment boom. I'm not worried about the investment boom. I know you buy something and it goes up, yada yada. I invest in stocks, dude. Which startup will win? Wu believes that the crypto-native game makers will have the winning so far, and they're being rapidly joined by the gaming native companies. And the combination of these native communities will likely be the ones that can design games that are fun and enjoyable to the mass market. I'm just going to read. It's beautiful that we have been able to introduce crypto to people that have traditionally not been using it. Said we're getting this technology in the hands of people that really need it. Big publishers still have a chance to buy in, much like Bitcoin. NFTs have already seen a rapid rising crash. About 40% of our audience thought the NFT bubble would burst in 60%, and that the NFT startups are overvalued. The acquirers could buy the crash. They could also spread the FUD and get regulators to crack down more quickly through buying lobby efforts. But if the scenario we saw in free-to-play mobile games repeats itself, then the NFT game startup will race ahead at valuations that will be too big for them to be acquired. And eventually, they will be the big ones doing the acquiring. Now, on that last sentence, I will only say, if the idea is that you mix NFT games with free-to-play, then maybe we can start to have something. But for now, if it's the same concept of NFT games, just NFT games, which aren't free to play, which literally are not free to play, which is the whole concept, like NFT games aren't necessarily free to play. And that's my whole thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is a bad game, but there's a difference between a game versus something that kind of pushes out money over a period of time. And don't get me wrong, there are things like World of Warcraft as well as RuneScape where people have made a sort of living mining things and selling gold in that sense. And those games are generally free to play. And it would be awesome if you could have an NFT marketplace just like World of Warcraft does to be able to sell your hard-earned loot or items and etc, etc. But like, I just wish that people understand that NFTs as well as cryptocurrency, like, they need some type of regulation. Even though I know that's the point of them, some type of regulation is going to have to happen, because like this article did point out, you can't literally have these things that cost huge amounts of money and just have players sell these things off and not have them be listed as securities. At a certain point, if something costs that much, you have to consider whether it's just, you know, is it someone's life savings or is that like an actual security? Like, we're literally selling assets off to each other. Like, that's a pretty big thing, you know? So all in all, I would say this article has changed my mind slightly, only in the case that NFT games can work if they adapt a more free-to-play model. And I still agree about Valve not implementing NFTs into, because NFTs and cryptocurrency are still in the infancy of their birth. So why would you just randomly throw something inside of a perfectly good marketplace that you have, knowing that your marketplace is still being, you know, like heavily regulated for things that are like, you know, people having mining, like people being able to implement code inside of Steam games. The last thing that you would necessarily need is to have a piece of code like that implemented inside of, even though it's blockchain technology, you still have to think about what Valve has to do to integrate that all inside of their system. And then it has to be fair for all players, and then we have to make sure that there is no, you know, money laundering, rug pulling, because anyone can easily put out a game on Steam, and then that game can also have a token that's staked with it. They can put out a game on Steam, and then they can easily just rug pull the living fuck out of that game, and whoever the developer is, it's just pure. Whoever the developer is, you may not even have to know who they are. They could be just a random dude that just makes stuff in this game. All in all, I'm saying, like, I understand the need for NFT. There's not a need for NFT games, but I wish people understand that there is a risk. You can't just look at things in life and look at all the pros in life without looking at all the cons in life. And that goes for everything in general, including just gaming itself. But my bad, I didn't mean to rant that long, but I just want to make sure that we have a clarity on what NFT games are. And I feel like it's going to probably be more of my job to give a little bit of a understanding on what NFT games are for people who may not know. Granted, I'm not into them, but I'll keep you ahead of the game, I guess. Speaking of game, my name is Chaos the Gamer, and yeah, GG's.